Okay, so dealing with multi-step equations, the first thing we want to look for is to combine like terms. So remember that a like term has to have the same variable and the same exponent. In our case, we don't have to worry about the exponents, but here we have two like terms. We have this negative 8x and this negative 3x. Notice how the sign has to go with that term. So when I combine these, I just read from left to right. So what is a negative 8x minus a 3x, or combining a negative 8 with a negative 3 gives me a negative 11. So I'm just going to write this down. So negative 11x, we have to keep the term with it. Then I didn't do anything with this plus 4. So I'm going to just bring that down and write it in order. So plus 4 equals 26. Once you get your like terms together, you want to then isolate the variable, which just means get the letter by itself. So if I'm going to try to get x by itself, the first thing I have to do is get rid of this positive 4. So what is the opposite of adding 4? Well, that would be subtracting 4. And remember, if you want to draw your wall, you can. Whatever I do to one side of this equation, or my wall, I have to do to the other side. So if I subtract 4 on the left side, I have to subtract 4 on the right side to keep that equation balanced. So what happens is these terms will cancel out. I bring my negative 11x down. And this is equal to 26 minus 4 is 22. Now, this is negative 11 times x. So how I undo multiplying by negative 11 is by dividing by negative 11. So when I divide negative 11 to both sides, this simplifies to give us a 1. So we just have a 1x equals a positive number divided by a negative number gives you a negative number. So this is that x equals negative 2. Now there's something different about number 2. Our second example up here in purple, we're going to see parentheses. When you see parentheses, you're going to think distributive property. All distributive property means is that you take the term on the outside of the parentheses or in front of the parentheses. In this case, the negative 7, we're going to carry that sign, and you're going to distribute or multiply that to each term on the inside of the parentheses. So you might say, what do I do with this 3x? We don't do anything with it yet. We're just going to bring this down. So 3x is going to come straight down, and then I'm going to distribute or multiply to each term on the inside of the parentheses. So negative 7 times a negative 6x gives me a positive 42x. And then a negative 7 times a negative 5 gives me a positive 35. And then equals a negative 235. Now, before continuing, you want to take a step back and look to see if you have any like terms like we did in this first equation. And we do. We have a 3x, and it's positive. There's no sign in front, so that means it's positive. And we have a 42x, which is also positive, denoted by that plus sign. So 3x plus 42x gives me a 45x. So 45x plus 35 equals negative 235. Now, as you can see, we have some larger numbers here, so you may use a calculator on some of this. Now, let's go ahead and draw our wall. We have no more like terms to combine, so we want to get the variable by itself. How I do that is to undo adding 35, I'm going to subtract 35 from both sides. So again, whatever I do to one side of my equation or my wall, I have to do to the other side. These will cancel out, leaving me 0. I will drop this term down, so I have a 45x left over, and this is equal to, now be careful, a negative 235 and a negative 35. When I combine those together, I get a negative 270. So this is negative 270. Meaning if you borrowed $235 from somebody, and then you came back to them and said, I'm sorry, I need to borrow 35 more, that means you borrowed a total of $270, meaning you owe them $270. Now, how do I finish this out? Remember, this is 45 times x, so to undo multiplying by 45, I'm going to divide by 45. So I get that x equals a negative number divided by a positive number is going to give me a negative number. And then 270 divided by 45, if you put that in your calculator, you should get 6. So negative 270 divided by 45 is a negative 6. So x equals negative 6.